Hey, it's Ed. Real quick before we start, I want to thank two brand new podcast supporters, Nate Melligan and Jeffrey Reed. Both Nate and Jeffrey signed up through Patreon, which is monthly support. There are a lot of different ways you can support the podcast, whether monthly through Patreon, one-time support. You can go to the Mountain and Prairie shop. Lots of different ways. Go to the website, check it all out. Best place to see it all is mountainandprairie.com/support. Thanks so much. Hey, this is Ed Robertson, and this is the Mountain and Prairie podcast, where I introduce you to some of the innovative individuals who are shaping the future of the American West. I meet most of these people through my work in land conservation or through my hobbies and interests that revolve around spending time up high in the mountains. My guests include ranchers, writers, entrepreneurs, conservationists, athletes, artists, adventurers, pretty much anyone who's doing important work, has an interesting story, and loves the American West. My guest today is Nicole Morgenthau. Nicole is a Utah-based professional photographer whose work depicts the people and places of the American West in a completely unique, one-of-a-kind style. While she's been involved in many aspects of the photography business throughout her career, Nicole may be best known for her portraits of a wide range of Western characters, from cowgirls to mountain men, from professional athletes to mountain town ski bums. And her creative pursuits don't stop with photography. Nicole is also the owner of Sandstone Sky Jewelry, a business in which she makes and curates a variety of stunning jewelry, much of which has its creative roots in Native American culture. Nicole was born and raised on the East Coast, just outside of New York City. As a kid, she loved Western movies and dreamed of one day moving out of the humid New Jersey suburbs and into the wide-open, arid landscapes of the American West. After high school, she made the move west for college, first in Colorado and then to Montana State, where she studied photography. And immediately after graduating, she dove headfirst into the photography business, first as an assistant to several commercial photographers, and then as her own boss. Since then, her work has been featured by well-known brands such as Patagonia, Outside Magazine, Men's Journal, the New York Times, and more. Nicole and I connected a few weeks ago and had an insightful discussion about everything from the photography business to jewelry making to overcoming creative blocks. We started out by discussing her childhood in New Jersey, her desire to move west, and how she decided to finally take that leap. We then talked about her journey as a professional photographer, the ups and downs, the evolution of the business, and how she found her voice as a portrait photographer. We talked about her jewelry business and how it complements photography, both creatively and financially. And towards the end, she offers up some excellent music recommendations, wise parting words, and an inspiring quote from Anthony Bourdain that I think you'll appreciate. Be sure to check out the episode notes for links to all the people and places that Nicole mentions. This was a really fun chat, and I hope you enjoy it. Could you maybe start out by talking a little bit about where you grew up on the East Coast and kind of what your childhood was like?
I'm originally from Livingston, New Jersey, which is basically a bedroom community for New York City. Lots of folks just commuted in there, and just suburbia, and phenomenally not fun. Like amazingly uninspiring, the most uninspiring place I've ever been. Not to cut it down completely, it's beautiful and green and lush. It just, for me, it was very like, I always felt like, what next? I got to get out. I got to go see something else. I don't want to be in the canopy of trees. I want to be out. I want a view. I want something else. I felt like that for as long as I could remember, actually. Mm-hmm. So.
Were you, like, did y'all do stuff outdoors when you were a kid? Like, would you go camping as a family or did you go on road trips or anything like that? Like, where did that come from? Like, where did you get the idea that there's something different than this?
Definitely not from my parents.
Yeah.
No, not like 100% indoorsy.
Yeah.
In fact, I can remember being at the beach and just hearing my parents complain about sand.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it is a little annoying to everybody, but it's, the trade-off of being around the saltwater is worth it to pretty much 110% of the population.
Yeah.
But my parents were just very chafed by that, and bugs and, anything, sweat and, loud talking and chewing. So no, it was very, very much not from my parents. I don't know. I would watch old Westerns. My dad would watch old movies, and I would watch and just be completely amazed at like the characters and the cactus and the dry, scrubby landscape and seeing Monument Valley. I think I was like maybe 7, and I was just like trying to grab it through the TV. You know, like I need to see that. And then when I was a teenager, my parents sent me on a trip that was mostly camping out west, just to, you know, open my eyes.
Where'd you go? Where'd you go out west?
Open. We went kind of everywhere. I think we started in South Dakota. And I remember, I think we were not at a KOA or somewhere like that. And I took a shower and then just standing on the grass with hot, dry air running through my hair. It was just like, it was a very emotional moment. Sounds cheesy, but I was just like, this is so good. You know, it was just that warm, dry Western air just felt so good. It felt really alive, and was really happy to be there. And then we traveled through a lot of states out west: Utah, Arizona, Colorado, I believe Washington State. That's what I remember. Those are the places that stood out. And nice. Bryce Canyon, I had a similar feeling to in South Dakota, and I was like, if Utah wasn't so weird, I would live there. And I've lived here for 21 years. And now I wish it was weirder. It's not that weird anymore.
Yeah, get some of the edge off of it.
Yeah.
So you went to college in Montana, correct?
I went to school in Colorado for 2 years. And then once I realized that I wanted to be a photographer and study photography, I transferred to Montana State because I had a pretty good program at the photo and film school there.
Nice.
Media theater arts, they called it.
So just going back one step, like when did you decide that that's where you're going to take off and go to for college? Because like when I was in high school, you know, if somebody had said you can go to Montana State or whatever, I would have been like, oh, that's great. But I think I would have been too nervous to go. Like I only applied to schools in North Carolina for some reason. I really don't know why. I don't know if there just wasn't much thought into it or if I was scared or what, but like, it sounds like your parents were not, you know, encouraging you to go out west or anything like that. And so like, how did that work out? I mean, how did you decide to make that leap to go from New Jersey to Colorado and then Montana?
I had zero hesitation at
really?
all. Yeah. Like not even any. I didn't know that I should be maybe intimidated to like leave my bubble because I never wanted to be it. I never asked for that bubble, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, sure.
You know, I was always ready to go. So, and of course my parents wanted me to stay on the East Coast, but they pretty much realized it wasn't going to happen. So
so when you arrived in Colorado, I mean, had you already, I know you've done a lot of rock climbing and I mean, had you already started climbing and doing that kind of thing on the East Coast, or was it all brand new? Like you get there and you're like,
everything
was
brand new.
God.
Yeah. As I said, like my family was very, not, you know, our time was spent in New York City, you know, mostly with relatives and things like that. So I had zero access to this stuff. I didn't even know it existed, but I was very interested. The second I had an opportunity to be introduced to the outdoors, I was so excited. And
so when did photography first start? Or maybe like when did creativity and arts first start for you? Art
has been part of my life always. I mean, I think a lot of children did this, but I always put makeup on our family dog. And then, you know, if her patience continued, there would be outfits and maybe like pearl necklaces. And so I always loved like styling, decorating, you know, making things. Even today, like with my friends' children, I'll take them for an incredibly slow hike and we'll just pick up cool things. And then like we ran down to a store and got a shadow box and put these just neat found objects in them for the kids. And so like, these are things that I have always kind of done. I've always liked making and creating. And photography, it wasn't the only thing, you know, there were a lot of things that I really art wise that I really enjoy. Designing jewelry, interior design, I find fascinating. Fashion, even though I dress like complete crap mostly. That's just,
you dress better than I am right now.
Yeah, that's because I work from home. So I'm just like, I'm going to be comfortable. But, you know, designing and creating has completely always been there. And then when one of my earliest photo mentors just told me that you really don't take pictures, you design and create pictures.
Interesting.
And I found that is very true. And when I heard that, I really got more obsessed with photography because I was like, there's so much out there that I want to document it. I want to make cool pictures. So
like, what was your photography like when you first started out? Like, say your first year out of Montana State, like when you get out, you've got this education, you've learned some stuff, you're in these, this cool environment, you're like immersed in the West. How would you describe your photography at that point?
For years, I actually assisted, because it's pretty hard to just leap right in.
Sure.
I needed money, and I was in a good place. I was living in Southern California for a year and a half. And so I had a ton of access to other commercial photographers. And so I just worked and worked and worked. And I also had a little business of my own, just doing exhibit printing for other photographers.
What does that mean?
And I think I was printing other people's photos for when they had like fine art exhibits or whatnot.
Nice.
And that's where I really got a good grasp on black and white photography. I think I was in the darkroom dodging and burning. This is in the old days.
Yeah.
But, wet printing.
Sure.
And so that's where I really started to understand photography. And I don't think it wasn't really from shooting. It was from seeing, how you can manipulate things, what the edges are, how understanding what a highlight is and understanding what a shadow is. And, understanding the limitation of photography and how you can manipulate it with flash, or sometimes you have to just turn around,
Mm-hmm.
You see something really cool and you're like, oh, it's not working. Okay, turn around.
Yeah.
Or turn your camera around. Like, just be open-minded.
This is kind of a dumb question, but I just realized I don't know the answer. Like, when you're an assistant to a commercial photographer, because I've had a lot of friends that have done that, and I think people that I've had on the podcast have mentioned doing that, but I've never actually asked, like, what do you do when you're an assistant? Like, what is that job like? It's
actually kind of a hard job, because you're really, really, really trying to pick up the pieces for somebody that is so incredibly busy. Mm-hmm. They're busy in their mind, they're physically busy, and their mind's very busy. And just basically anything people need. So a lot of times it was a matter of just like hot lights, just moving, dragging things, setting lights up. I've never been good with lighting. So basically, there often have to be another assistant doing that, unless it was somebody I was very accustomed to working with. Mm-hmm. But I would, again, style clothing, if we were working with models, and just keeping an eye out on things, making sure a collar was even, and everything and anything, to be honest. Just keeping an eye out. I think for me, I felt like just being aware, being ready, being helpful, mm-hmm. just having someone's back, because they're really stressed. And I've had a lot of people be like, I'd love to assist for you, or, anything like that. And I'm like, you trust me, you don't want to, because it's not a fun job. Photography is cool, but when photographers are stressed and, sometimes it's 100 degrees out, I'm like, trust me, you don't want to be here right now.
So at what point did it come together where financially it made sense, and then, and you realized, all right, I can go off and do this on my own? Like, was there a certain point where you're like, all right, I got the skills and I can make this work from a business, like dollars and cents standpoint, and I can go for it? Or was it more of just like kind of like a gradual process? Honestly,
when photography moved to digital, I pretty much had no choice. Because I was doing, like I said, I was doing a lot of the exhibit printing, mm-hmm. and that all dried up with digital. Mm-hmm. Everybody was, processing at home and, either printing at home or sending their stuff to a commercial printer. And so I really had absolutely no choice, and it was incredibly terrifying.
Yeah. And
it was a really slow start. And this will come back into your other question that you asked before, like, what did I do when I got started? And, I was rock climbing a lot. So that's kind of what I was shooting and mm-hmm. trying to promote. And I wasn't good at it. I mean, I was not very good at it. I mean, I took a few nice shots, but mm-hmm. I'm a portrait photographer, really. That's where I feel most at home. And mm-hmm. so I didn't know that at the time, How
long did it take you to figure that out, to come to that realization?
It took quite a while. I'd have people like, oh, your people stuff is pretty good. Like I'd work with athletes and then I'd take a portrait of them. And those were the pictures that were good. Like the trail running shots or climbing shots, they pretty much sucked. They were uneventful. And I brought my book down to a magazine in Colorado one time. It was actually Rock and Ice. And one of the editors, I was pretty young, but one of the editors was like, yeah, this is like uneventful. And I was like, okay, do you have a bathroom so I can go cry really quick? But I'm like, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing to say because it's like nobody wants to look at horrible art, It's basically
Still,
like retool. Like you got it. Like, if you're going to do this, you got to do something else. And it hurt at the time, but I was glad to hear it,
Yeah, that's one of those things that makes my stomach flip thinking about it because that's so brutal. And I can picture, a young creative person who's excited and somebody says something like that. And I mean, from what you say, maybe he was right and you needed to hear it, but still, like, I don't know how you can get that message through or how you could have learned that without somebody being so brutal, but it's probably like pulling the Band-Aid off, It's just like,
I mean, really, yeah. Like saying, oh, that's so nice, but we're not going to give you work doesn't really feel a ton better. Because it's like photographers want to work.
How much, so you're obviously tough in a lot of ways, but how much would you say that has been an important part of your career? Because we talked about this when we talked on the phone last week or whenever it was, week before, that, it's a tough business. You take all the art, take all that, just look at it strictly from a sterile dollars and cents, like, market saturation, however you want to evaluate professional photography as a business, it's tough. And so how much would you say that your personal toughness has been one of the reasons for your success?
Well, success is all extremely relative.
Well, see, you're humble too. You're humble. So that half these questions I ask to humble people, they refuse to answer them. I would say it's probably a lot, even though I'm not you, because you got to be tough.
Well, part of that is the Jersey in me. I think it's just that I grew up in a community around people that were very honest, and I really appreciate that. Like I don't appreciate people being unkind, or hurtful or anything like that. But I think it's just nice to get to the point. You know what I mean? There's no reason to like skip around and whatever. And I think it's almost kinder to offer somebody a piece of honesty so that they can move forward with the proper information. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's a glaring difference between our upbringings. Cause like we're both from the same longitude, I guess. But when you, think about like the Southern good manners and everybody's so nice and nobody's ever going to say anything bad. Like it took me like when I moved out west and all that's taken away, it was quite the record scratch. Or, holy cow, these people are rough. And so you were many steps ahead of me.
I don't know. We just all kind of are who we are, and I've also, like everybody else, we've had some experiences where we've been lied to on big life things and they really hurt, So I was like, I always feel like if I have the proper information, I can make the proper choices without being manipulated by what people want you to think or whatever. Or it just makes life a heck of a lot easier. Yeah. And I think it's the right way to treat people,
Yeah, I agree.
Give people, just be honest with them. Everybody deserves that, I feel like.
I think so. Even though it can be a little tough. Or maybe I'm just too soft. So
it's just cultural, I think.
Yeah. We talked about this when we talked the other day, and I was telling you that when I look, when I'm scrolling through silly Instagram, just, going through all these, and just all these images going into my brain, and it's half of it's subconscious. I don't even know what I'm looking at. But when I see your art, specifically your portraits, I instantly know is yours. And, I've been following you for a while online but your work is so unique and it is very specific to you, at least when I see it. And can you talk a little bit about how you came to find, I don't know what the term would be, but like find your voice when it comes to photography? Because I feel, and specifically portraits, because I feel like you've really nailed it from my untrained eye.
Well, I appreciate that so much. As I told you when we spoke the other day, I'm doing a bit of a rewind because this wasn't automatic,
Yeah.
I went to school to study physical therapy. I think it was in 2013 after taking like 2 years of prerequisites. I'd been out of school for a really long time. I went back to school at 39 and, let's just say, science and math they're really not good like for me at all. And so I studied like 6 days a week. I gave up pretty much everything to do this because I thought it was just going to be a good, safe bet. But
hold on just a second before you go further on that. Why did you decide to go? What drew you to even thinking about doing physical therapy school?
Well, I mean, I'm a very active person and I enjoy I think the human body is fascinating, especially when it's strong. And I just thought it was all really cool and it'd be something I'd like to work with. And I did have a massage therapy. I was a massage therapist for a little while as well. So I thought it would just pair nicely. And I really like people. I like being around people and helping people. So I thought it would be a pretty neat thing to do. But like I said, math and science, not so cool. Not even a little bit cool, actually, for me.
Yeah.
It actually sucked in my life. I had no endorphins. I had no creativity. I was just super depressed. And anyway, so that schooling did not work out. I had to take one class over, and it wasn't offered for a year. So I was like, all right, I'm out. I didn't say it that nicely, and I wasn't that cool about it. But
Jersey.
Yeah, I was cursing and crying. But anyway, I did. After that, I took a workshop with Andy Anderson, who's a commercial photographer in Idaho, and I asked him for some advice, and he was like, "You don't need any help with photography. You need help like." You need to do whatever the fuck you want. Excuse my language. But that's literally what he said to me, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And so I just started thinking about everything that made me feel inspired. And it was literally all those old movies as a child that I would see on TV and the, Western and just rugged life and all that. I just wanted to do it and see it and be around it. And so I started to inquire about these mountain man rendezvous. I had forgotten that I went to one in college as my senior project, actually, in Montana State. I went to a rendezvous and took a bunch of portraits. They were pretty marginal because that was a long time ago. But I just really wanted to see that again. So I went to one. And I also love history as much as I love art. So it was pretty outstanding place for me to be. And so I started looking at these faces and characters and, one thing led to the next. I'm friendly. And so I met a lot of interesting people and they invited me to their homes. They invited me to these, kind of camps, primitive camps. And I would say yes to everything. And I'd just go and take pictures and camp and observe. And, God, I just felt really, really alive. And that's when I feel like my photography really became something, that I was proud of. It took a long time. I shot a lot of awful pictures for a long time.
What makes somebody good at taking portraits? Because it seems like this should be so, it's kind of this weird combo from my, again, I don't know what I'm talking about, but just looking in, it seems like it's this weird combo of highly technical with a lot of different things that need to be adjusted, from the light to the aperture to, everything you could need to adjust. I would think in photography, you got to be very, very precise with it, with portraits combined with interpersonal skills with other people, which is obviously complex. So like in your mind, what makes a good portrait photographer?
Well, I do believe that you need to be able to connect with people and make them feel comfortable. And it's a very large portion of my work is personal work. Like what I post on Instagram most of it is personal project work. So I'm already seeking out people I want to be around, but I try to apply that to my, all of my regular gig work and, magazine work. And it's just, these people are being documented because they have something to tell or show, and so I think that already makes them feel kind of comfortable when you realize that, you're here, we're documenting you because be it anything. You could be a phenomenal artist, an amazing athlete. You could be a chef. Like whatever you're doing is really great, and people want to hear and see about it. They want to hear about it and see it.
Yeah.
So, I'm not like buttering people's bread, but it's just true. Like they're worth being documented. So I think once they realize that you're not there to just snap the camera, you're there to like engage with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that already kind of puts people a little bit at ease. And so that's half the equation. And then the other half is, that's kind of harder to answer because you're always walking in kind of blind,
Yeah.
Be it just documentary work. You don't know what the weather is going to be like or who's going to be there. That's just when your pocket of tools just come in handy that you've collected over the years, being able to read light a little bit and, turn people to the side if they're kind of big and you want to make them look smaller. All these things that we do to just make people look their best,
You mentioned Andy Anderson, and then are there other influences you've had, maybe specific to portraits? And they don't even have to be people but people that you admire their work that have maybe influenced your work. Are there certain people that come to mind that you kind of maybe give them a little nod when you think about your, all the different kind of sources of inspiration that have come together to make your work what it is?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, very obviously, Edward Curtis was like my all-time favorite photographer. And, I look at his pictures all the time, even though I've seen them all, I still look at them. Another artist who I don't know, but when I was in college, I would look at her work a lot, was Sally Mann.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with her.
No, I'm not.
Oh, take a look sometime. Her work is extraordinary. A live photographer who I am good friends with is Mark Tucker. He's out of Nashville, and he's a commercial photographer, but his ability to take candid street portraits and just the way he processes black and white is phenomenal. Absolutely. I mean, he's from another world, talented. And I mean, there are zillions. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Chris Douglas, a contemporary Western photographer who we all know.
Yeah, he's been on here.
Yeah. Oh, and he doesn't, everything he takes is has that magic feel to it.
Yeah, he is a interesting dude. When people can go back and listen to that episode, but his background, in a way, very, similar to yours as far as it took quite a while, I mean, he was pretty far in his career when a lot of different things kind of came together and he kind of found his voice. So I think if people are interested in photography, that's a good one to listen to as well. He's just a unbelievably nice guy as well. So like when you think about like right after Andy Anderson kind of told you do what you want to do, and then you think about now and your work, how would you say your work has evolved, your portrait work, from when you kind of got the go ahead and in your mind you're like, all right, here we go, I'm going to do what I want to do. How has your work evolved? And again, this is one of those questions that's hard for a humble person to answer. But I mean, what's better about it? How would you describe the evolution of your work?
Well, I'll say what's better about it is, photography. I'll say this is a very general statement, but photography is not at all like riding a bike, in my opinion. Like you really need to shoot a lot, and so I do. And sometimes the pictures aren't good, but it's just practice, you need to shoot a lot. And so once I kind of got that focus, I think it was about 2014, I started really moving in this Western direction. And I go to a lot of events, whether they're work or not. If I hear about something cool and I have the time, I go. Mm-hmm. And it's just practice. I mean, like anything anyone wants to get good at, nonstop practice. So, I don't think anyone should become a photographer because it seems cool. Like, it's not really that cool. I sleep in my car a lot. And I don't know. I mean, it's not glamorous at all. It's just, it's a neat thing for sure. But it's it's not easy. Like people think, they think it's just a cool job, and it's just like, I don't know. I think a cool job is getting paid every 2 weeks, a really nice amount. So,
well, I'd say, when you put a job, like there's just a reality with that, I mean, even this podcast is not my job, but after doing 100 and however many of these episodes, when it comes time to start editing or building the web page or whatever, I love these conversations. Like, I love talking to you. I can't believe I get to talk to people like you. It's the coolest thing in the world. But then when it comes time at, midnight to put together that damn web page, I'm like, God, this. And so,
for sure.
But I think that comes with, if you're committed to something, there's going to be a grind. If it were easy, everybody'd do it, for you.
That's right.
I'm not talking about myself.
And hopefully I answered your question. I'm not sure if I did.
No, you did. No, you perfectly did. I think that's important. And I think, and that probably goes along with some of your rock climbing experience too, because I feel like I've never really been able to commit to rock climbing because I know it's not like riding a bike. Like, you have to do it so much to stay good at it. It's like playing golf or anything. Like,
yes,
you'll lose it if you stop and running, whatever. And so there's only so many things you can be that committed to. And I think that's good for people to hear. If you want to be a pro like you are in the photography world, you better be ready for a grind, because it's
true.
That's the reality. I want to take a quick turn and talk about one of your other creative endeavors, which is jewelry making. Because I think that is, can you just talk about your jewelry business first? Yeah,
I can. So I'm not a silversmith at all. I don't solder anything. I mostly buy and resell, but I also have been designing jewelry since, this is going to sound ridiculous, but since I was about 13 years old.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, it was a really long time, because both of my grandmothers were really into jewelry and beads. And my dad's mom just always gave me tons of beads. And so for as long as I can remember, I was making gifts for the women in my family, necklaces and bracelets and stuff like that. So, and then when I was in college, I would summer in Jackson Hole and have a variety of jobs. And one of them was making my jewelry and selling it in the town square, which would probably be highly illegal right now.
Oh yeah. They run you off.
No, definitely. But, I would have a day job, a couple days a week, and then I would do that as well. And so it's jewelry's always been there. A lot of people are like, think it's a new thing. It just isn't. But I was focusing on other things for a long time. So it's a wonderful job to have, especially with the photography, because I drive down to New Mexico and Arizona a lot to buy jewelry, and I take pictures, and sometimes I'm lucky enough to
connect
a job while I'm doing my other job. So,
and how is that? Like, how did that either complement or supplement, or whatever word you want to use, your kind of photography income during COVID? Because I remember when we were talking, you said it was surprising how that business did during a time when a lot of businesses were not doing great.
Yeah, I guess it would be March 2020 when I start. That's pretty much the time when I start lining up my spring and summer gigs, and as fast as they had come in, they dried up. Everything was getting canceled. And all the jobs and all the, personal projects were just off the table. So I just decided to really ramp up the jewelry, because I had absolutely no choice. And I did that, and it went phenomenally well. I think everybody was home and, not traveling, not dining out. And so that business did really well. People were very excited to, buy themselves little treasures, and it was cool.
That's really cool.
Worked out well.
One of the things you keep saying that I think is interesting for people, or is interesting for me to hear, is you didn't have a choice. Like when photography shifted to digital, you thought, well, I didn't have a choice, and you made a decision and you moved forward. And then when all these jobs got ripped out from under you, when the pandemic hit, instead of, sitting around, you're like, well, I don't have a choice. Let's do something else. And I think that's I think that's a really cool lesson for me to hear, just about, I don't know, they talk about setting things up so that you're like burning the boats, when you go on the shore and then burn the boats, and you can't retreat. And so it's almost like, I think that's a good thing for people to hear, especially during all this crazy time we're in right now. Is it weird kind of putting your creative, I mean, I know you're reselling some, but you're making some, I mean, how is that, putting that out to the world and offering it like for people to buy? I mean, because again, it's kind of like your personal creativity and your personality being out there. And I would think, me at least, I'd be like, oh, what if nobody buys it? I mean, do you go through that at all?
I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our hang-ups and our things and our insecurities, but that I didn't have. I really enjoy what I do, and I don't put the brakes on when I do it with art. And so I felt pretty good. I felt pretty confident about it. Also, I'm so motivated by it because I get to learn a lot of it's Native American jewelry, most of it that I resell. So I'm around a lot of Native people for my photography job. And anytime I have an opportunity to learn about them, their culture, their past, I'm so pleased to. And so jewelry is a humongous piece of that. For people wear it for ceremonies, for just enjoyment, for tradition. And so to be able to learn about that and share that is just super cool for me. And, I'm incredibly grateful to some of the folks that have, sat me down and just when I didn't even ask, they were just like, let us teach you what this means.
Oh yeah. I mean, what an opportunity. That's really, so you said you go down to New Mexico and Arizona. Like, where specifically have you had any super cool experiences down there you could recount for us? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, they're all great experiences because I'm in a place I want to be doing what I want to do. So it's like double whammy of awesomeness. But one time I accidentally stumbled upon the Northern Navajo Fair. I was down in Gallup, New Mexico, buying jewelry. And now I look at calendars and schedules a little bit better than I used to. I used to just run down when I had the time and money and go buy some stuff. And anyway, this is one time, it was about a year and a half ago, maybe close to 2 years ago now. I was driving home and I was going through Shiprock, New Mexico, and there was the Northern Navajo Fair. And I pulled over and I had the absolute best time walking around, observing, learning all about Santo Domingo, which is also called Kiwa. To them, they're Kiwa. Jewelry and culture. And I had people literally, if I asked one question, they gave me 50 answers.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I think people want you to represent, if you're going to talk or share their culture, which is theirs, they want you to do it correctly.
Sure.
And so I had a woman, offer to teach me how to hand drill turquoise, with a pump drill.
Wow.
Turquoise beads, and which I didn't do because I was kind of on the move. But just stopped and had conversations. The culture is so different. We're always very rushed, and most of the Native people I know are not rushed, which is hard for me sometimes because I'm pretty type A.
Yeah.
But it's also a really good lesson. Just sit. Not everything's about our time. It's shared time when you're with somebody else. So, they can dictate this day is going to go,
Speaking of that, of that, need to calm down or need to not rush. Cause I'm kind of the same. I mean, like I'm very goal oriented, very driven in a lot of ways, and it can get kind of out of control sometimes. I mean, do you have any practices you do to like just calm down? I mean, and that could be hard exercise. It could be time in the mountains, could be mindfulness type practice. I mean, what do you do to kind of counteract some of the challenges that come with being type A?
Well, of course, exercise.
What do you do?
That might have happened if I wasn't type A, just because for me, I find it very enjoyable. Lots of yoga.
Oh, cool.
Hiking. I haven't been climbing very much. Just been mostly hiking and yoga because they work well time wise. I spend a lot of time working these days, a lot more than I used to. So I can take an hour here and there. And then during the pandemic, in the early days, I started meditating a little bit, and it wasn't guided. It was just something I would kind of force myself to do because I was feeling that real angst of not being on the road. You get really used to traveling as a photographer and a lot of stimulation, and I was just pretty bored and a little frustrated in the early days. So I would just force myself to just sit down, not need anything, you know. There's nothing to replace what I really want, which is a good road trip. So I just sat there, you know, pet the dog, just be quiet, you know, don't drink a beer. It's not going to help. Don't eat sugar. It's not going to help, you know, like none of it really helps that much. Just sit down and be quiet and just let that time pass.
Did you find that to be helpful in any way?
Yeah, it's really helpful. Really, really helpful. Aside from what I'm used to, I think we all are sort of addicted to something, right?
Oh, yeah.
And for me, it's a little bit of adrenaline of just going and doing and, you know, and we don't always get to do things the way we planned or want to. So it's really important for just be able to roll a little bit and just accept what, you know, the moment is offering rather than what you want.
Yes.
It's really hard for me.
I know. Same for me. Like when I started a meditation practice many years ago now, and I would it was almost like I was gritting my teeth. Like, all right, 20 minutes. I'm going to dominate this 20 minutes, you know, and it's, I probably still do that to a point, but it's, I don't know. For me, that stuff it's been some of the most frustrating thing I've ever done, but also probably, if you ask my wife, it's probably the best thing I've ever done because she's the one that has to deal with my crazy ass. And so it's, she appreciates it if nobody else does. And so music's a big part of your life, right? We had such a great call the other day, and I was like, we got to be quiet because we got to save some of this stuff to talk about. And we did not talk about music. Are you musical yourself? Are you a big fan of music? Maybe a combo of both?
Yeah, no, music, very much falls into the math and science for me. Yeah. I tried to play guitar, and it just really didn't work at all. But I love music, and, you know, like most people, you know, it's, you know, we have music we listen to, we want to be amped up. We have music we listen to when we want to be mellow. All sorts of, I mean, gosh, I drive a ton. And so I listen to music all the time. And it really, it varies a lot, you know. I like gangster rap and I love bluegrass.
Do you really?
And I like country and yep. And once in a while, I'm cheesy enough, but I will admit I will listen to a little bit of pop once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm like, yeah, if it's good, it's good, you know?
I was thinking about putting a little blog post up of some of the songs that I listen to when I'm running. Because sometimes I'll like listen to the same. I'll put one song on repeat and listen to it for like 6 hours straight, which is very strange. But then other times it'll be like the weirdest combo, like pop and then some like really cheesy country. I've been listening to some really cheesy country song recently over and over and over, and I don't even really like it. I don't know why I do that. It kind of puts me in a trance or something. But like who is if you had to name your favorite band or musical artist, who is it?
You know, that's hard to say because that answer changes like quarterly. I'm listening to a lot of Cody Jinks right now. He's one of my favorites, and he's like kind of, I don't know what category. He's kind of country, Americana. And I love the country Americana. A lot of those musicians I like a lot. Of course, I'm having like a complete.
Do you like the Avett Brothers?
You asked me. Who?
Do you like the Avett Brothers?
I don't listen to them much. I'm not very familiar with them.
They're from North Carolina, and I think I was listening to them on Apple Music, and it, you know, then it starts suggesting other bands. And I think that guy, Cody, you mentioned popped up kind of related to them. So you might like them. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
So you know, as we discussed last week, when I'm thinking about this podcast, I want people who are listening to it to be able to put to use some of the, you know, the wisdom that you've earned over your career and over your life. So like, what would be your advice to somebody coming out of school right now, say they're 2 or 3 years out of school and they want to make a life as a creative, whether that's photography or writing or whatever. I mean, what would be your advice to somebody like that, knowing everything you know about how and hanging out with other creative people? And I mean, what would be your advice to a 25-year-old?
Well, I think the best advice I ever got, and it's another one of these pretty hard lessons, but it was you're only as good as your last photo or your bet, you know what I mean? So just never put out garbage. Mm-hmm. Like, do the best work you can possibly do. Don't put anything out there that is so and be like, oh, well, I didn't have a great day or the job wasn't interesting. It's not the job's fault, because if you get hired, you're hired because you have the right skill to make the not that interesting thing interesting. That's your job, you know? So I really think that self-confidence is phenomenally important in art, because there's a lot of it out there and no one's giving you anything. You know, you have to ask for what you want. If you want a good successful career, you have to make it. No one's going to give it to you. You know, there's no freebies in this at all. So, work really hard, produce your best work. Don't be afraid. If you need help, ask for it. Sure. I have people ask me for help, and sometimes they come kind of shyly, like, is this okay? I'm like, this is good. This is what you have to do. Yeah. You're asking for what you need. You ask for what you need as a young creative person. If you don't have the answer, find it, So that, and then once you have a body of work that you're proud of, start showing it around. And that's the really unfun part. I used to do that. I used to go to New York and bring my book around. And back in those days, I was not very confident, but I knew I had to do it. Mm-hmm. So you find editors' names, you call them, if you have to call them 20 times, 30 times until you can get an appointment and show them your work. Make them know who you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't really recommend kissing ass in any situation because it's fake, but you need to find a way to engage with the people that you want to engage with. Yep. It's essential because no one's going to really find you. This is not an easy route, Well,
here's a question about the part of the beginning where you were saying don't put out garbage. Like, I would think that could create an opportunity for somebody with a certain personality, where maybe they're letting perfection get like their idea of what they should be doing or what they could be doing with what they're actually producing, and then there's this disconnect between the two, and they think, well, this isn't good enough yet. And they keep delaying versus just doing the best you can and then getting that outside. How did you do that in your brain? How did you kind of bridge that gap in your brain between, all right, maybe I could do better in the future, but this is the best I can do now and I'm putting it out. Like how did you not hide behind perfectionism? Or maybe that doesn't even apply to your personality type.
It does. No, it does, because I took some workshops with other photographers. Mm-hmm. Again, that's the asking. I wasn't confident. I didn't feel ready to always have my work out there. So I would take workshops and I'd ask. And I also assisted for a lot of other photographers. Yeah. And so I was around what was good. I was around good photography, and I could gauge. I was like, okay, I'm not anywhere near where I need to be. And I would ask them for help, I worked with this wonderful photographer down in Santa Barbara, whose name is McDuff Everton, who's a very good friend and also an extremely honest person. So when I would shoot, be it personal or little jobs I'd get, I was like, is this good? And he had no problem telling me if it was dog shit. Yeah, zero. And I'm like, at this time, again, I was not very confident. I was like, oh God. But, everyone has a different personality, but he was very blunt. But that's where I learned, because I wanted to go when I went to an editor to present my work. If it wasn't good, I wasn't going to present it. Mm-hmm. But when it was good, I would have people be like, that is good. Like, you're good. Like, go, fly, flap your wings, go do this. Don't be held back by the photographer you were last year or the person you were last year, because we evolved so much. So Yeah, ask. I say to people, ask. If you're not sure, take a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Find a photographer you like and take a workshop with them. Most people do offer workshops.
So did you find, I mean, I know what the answer is here, but I was going to ask, did you find like your formal education, all these workshops valuable? Obviously you did, but like what specifically did you get out of these workshops? I mean, like is it what you just said, like the almost like the confidence, or were there technical skills, or I mean, what did you get out of this formal education? Because some people are like they say they owe everything to their formal education, and then some people say I didn't learn anything from formal education. So, like, what specifically did you get if it's different than what you just said?
Well, that's why I'm suggesting workshops over formal education. I did go to photo school, but I was young and I wasn't super focused at the time.
Yeah.
So I could have learned all of that just from assisting and working with other photographers. And I feel like when you take workshops, you get to pick what you want to learn, be it a technical skill or be it, something, a Lightroom course or, a portrait class, or you're actually picking to learn about the information you need.
Yep.
So I feel like that's a really good way to go. Whatever information you're looking for, there's somebody out there that can offer it to you.
No, I think that's very valuable. I mean, because everybody needs mentors and that's kind of a way of getting a mentor. I mean, you can get this tight relationship and connection with somebody who can teach you something. I think that's great. I've heard that guy that you mentioned, Andy Anderson, who you mentioned. I've heard his name so many times as just being such a generous, obviously talented, but just a really good guy. So maybe I need to try to get him on here at some point because he's. I recommend.
Awesome. He's highly entertaining as well.
Really?
He's really funny. He's a great person. And he also, I admire him so much too, is because he does a lot of personal work and his commercial work is phenomenal. Phenomenal. And he's the king of would never do it doesn't matter what the job is. Everything looks brilliant every time. And that's your job as an artist, Sure.
One kind of quick question I like asking folks, and you don't have to reveal any like specific secret spots, but living there in Utah and having lived all over the West, Jackson Hole, Colorado, around Bozeman, like, do you have a favorite spot in the West? And it could be like a trail or a crag where you like, or, a certain mountain. Is there a specific spot that is kind of your favorite?
I have a lot of them. But if I had to say one favorite area, I would say on the Colorado-New Mexico border. From all the way from the Four Corners to halfway through the state of New Mexico. There's so much, so many beautiful areas, and just really pretty sparsely populated, which, as I get older, I really appreciate just, the calmness of being in nature and being somewhere just really quiet.
Yep.
And, the landscape really changes quickly there from high peaks to broad, wide open desert. And I love both so much. So it's really nice to have both in a close proximity.
Yeah, that is really beautiful. My sister and her family were out here last week and they did a little road trip through Colorado, and I kind of helped them plan it, and I sent them down that way because it's so unique for about 100 different reasons.
Yeah, it really is.
Kind of last big question, and again, this one can be challenging for humble people to answer, but if you had, the people who listen to this podcast, they're like me and you in that they just love the West and they find inspiration in it from a variety of different, vantage points, whether it's athletics or art or conservation or agriculture, but for some reason they're attracted to the West. And so knowing that that's kind of who listens, do you have any kind of parting words of wisdom or something you'd like to ask of people who listen to this thing? I mean, any final words to kind of wrap it up?
That could be like another hour to 10-hour conversation.
We can do that.
I don't even know where to begin. I guess this is something that's very common, not just in the West, but any place that's desirable to live. Is we're all witnessing it changing really rapidly, and I don't know sometimes I wonder if my parents and grandparents thought the same, because of course they saw changes as well, but the population wasn't what it was today.
Yeah.
I just really think you don't have to be a greenie or a tree hugger or any of these things. I think everybody should really, really respect the land where they live and travel. We're really, really far beyond thinking that we don't have an impact. We have an enormous impact. I get actually very emotional because I just, seeing the landscape changing so much, especially here in Utah, where it's places we used to run and play, and it's all track housing, and it's very hard to see. Mm-hmm. And I know some of it is non-negotiable because the population is increasing, and all these children grow up and everything, but they need a place to live. But it's really hard. It's hard to witness. So I just think that people should, all the other things you're conscious about in your life, like your kid being fed, or getting enough sleep, or doing its homework, or teaching young people to really respect the land that they live and travel in, is just incredibly important.
Definitely.
And water, obviously water. I mean, I'm not just talking about litter. I'm talking about the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, I think, you talk about this track housing and all this stuff. I mean, that's what I deal in all day long with my job. And I think the factor that's going to shut it down, like the true non-negotiable, is water. I mean, there ain't going to be enough for all these people. And so that's going to stop these county zoning departments from approving these, these neighborhoods that shouldn't. There just aren't going to be the resources for them to be there. And so there's going to be a reckoning. We'll see what happens.
For sure. And I know, just living here in Salt Lake City, there was just a giant boom. I mean, anyone that's passed through here in the past 20 or 30 years, it seems like the boom has been going and going, but it's a completely transformed place from when we moved here, for sure. We definitely moved here because it was pretty provincial, and we loved the kind of unsophisticated nature of it because we just looked at it as a big mountain town. But now it's just a completely different place, which is true for so many other areas. The only very similar example I could say would be a place like Boise, which doesn't have quite the population, but the same things going on just a slightly smaller scale. But it's hard to witness.
Yeah, it is. But on the flip side, like in my, I used to be on the real estate side, basically selling the land to those people who are developing it. And I didn't feel great about it, obviously. And so now I'm on the conservation side, and, I work with people all day long. Some of the smartest people. I don't know why I'm on these calls, because I don't deserve to be on these calls, but I'm on some of with these smartest people in the United States when it comes to water specifically, and water policy, and water efficiency, and water quality. And, they just don't get the press that they deserve, which gets my wheels turning about what kind of opportunity is there to tell those people's stories. But they're really, really, really smart and really aggressive and really driven people who are finding solutions to these things. And so that really gives me hope. And it's not a feel good kind of like, oh, it's all going to work out. It's not that at all. But these people, they're just as aggressive, if not more, than the people who are taking these resources. And so they're not as well funded, though. That's the only problem. But they're aggressive, and they're smart. They're probably smarter in a lot of ways. And so I think that gives me hope. And I'm going to hopefully be able to tell those stories more, or help to tell those stories, because there's a lot to be optimistic about, but it ain't just going to happen,
Yeah.
And so we will see. We'll see what happens.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know they're out there.
Yeah. We just got to get the stories out. Well, man, I just admire your work so much. I admire you. I admire your attitude about all this stuff, just your toughness. It's I'm just really glad to have gotten to know you, and it's a real pleasure. So thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me on here. I'm completely flattered. Before I go, can I just share one quote with you?
Yes, please. I love quotes.
Well, I really enjoy it, and I feel like for anyone, this isn't just for photography. This is for anyone that wants to do their thing, or do their thing even better.
Yeah.
I heard this the other day. Okay. It's from Anthony Bourdain. And he says, I like going to a place thinking one thing and being completely wrong about all of it. And I think that curiosity goes a really long way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a child, I or other kids would get in trouble for it. But I think as an adult, I think you need to stay curious. It keeps us motivated, and it can kind of also keep us very open-minded too.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I mean, that's what I'm trying to cultivate in my girls. I feel like if they can be curious, because if you're curious, you're going to be humble. And I think humility is key. I love that quote. I love Anthony Bourdain, and even though I couldn't be more different than the guy, I love, on the surface at least, I love some of his quotes are some of the most powerful ones I have. I have them written on my board above my desk. So that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. But thank you again for your time. This was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Hey, it's Ed again. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I know your time is valuable, so it means the world that you spend it listening. If you want to support the podcast and help it to continue to spread and grow, there are a few ways you can help. Number one, pass it along to a friend or share it on social media. Word of mouth recommendations are the most powerful way for ideas to spread, so I'd love it if you could share the podcast with a few pals who might enjoy it. Number two, you can go to Apple Podcasts and give it a 5-star review. Good reviews encourage the Apple overlords to suggest the podcast to others. So there's a link in the notes if you'd be so kind as to give it 5 stars. Number three, you can support the podcast financially via Patreon, and there are exclusive benefits for those who do, including a monthly behind-the-scenes newsletter, Mountain and Prairie stickers, live and recorded video chats with podcast guests, and much more. Number four, I've also got 2 emails that I send out. The first is my weekly email called Good News from the American West, which I send out every Wednesday. It's only positive news, something we can all use a little more of these days. And my other email is my bi-monthly book recommendations email. One email every other month with 5, 6, 7, or 8 books that I've recently read and highly recommend. The thousands of people on both of these lists will vouch for me. No spam or other funny business. And number 5, finally, check out my online store for Mountain and Prairie stickers, shirts, and coffee mugs. I've got some really cool designs from Western artists with more on the way. So head to mountainandprairie.com/shop to check it all out. I'd love to connect with you. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, so look me up on either of those platforms by my name or through the links on my website. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for your support.